Hello and welcome. I am once again Mr. Fowler, welcoming you back to Session 2 of English 111, Section 3001, College and Career Success Skills. We're going to continue our conversation about the distinctions that make college different and perhaps even a little more difficult than some of our previous schooling experiences. If nothing else, as we discussed in our forums, this has become a very different semester for many students. Even a traditional college experience would be different from what we would have experienced at a high school level, but this semester in particular is very distinct. Let's go ahead and zoom over to, let's zoom over to our course website, Desire to Learn. Okay, I'm over here in the upper right-hand corner in case you missed me. So we're going to go ahead and look at student view. And today, I want to start with a little bit of a preview / review of what we want to take a look at for today. Obviously, we're going to start with the syllabus, and then I want to take a look at the discussion question form, and lastly, I want to give you a little reminder and preview of this week's quiz. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the discussion forum. So I'm going to click on the discussions tab. And here you can see that I posted 3 questions. Has your school experience been impacted by COVID-19? How so? Did you get a chance to attend a graduation ceremony? Why or why not? Have you ever taken an online class before? And if you did, was it a positive or negative experience? Lastly, what specific concerns and or questions do you have about this course after having read the syllabus? So if I click on the week 1 topic, we shall quickly see the weekly discussion thread. And if you haven't yet had a chance to respond to this discussion thread, please try to do that by Friday, sometime before midnight, to get the optimum amount of points. So as you can see, we have a whole host of responses and responses from yours truly, as well as responses from other students. So if you haven't had a chance yet to take care of that, you may want to stop in. Again, you just have to click on the discussions tabs link. And from there, it will display the discussion question weekly parameters. You'll see this each and every week. And then you'll see the specific questions. And then you click on the hyperlink for week 1 to access that material. Once you've completed this material, you only have the quiz to do. So there's only one quiz logged in here. And you just, again, click on the hyperlink. It says quiz number 1, pretty easy to find. And as you can see, you have, 2 hours to take that quiz, okay? And it says before you submit the quiz, you'll have the opportunity to return to the questions that you may have missed or may not have answered. You can submit your quiz responses at any time, and you just click Start Quiz to begin the process. Okay. So once you start quiz 1, you'll have an opportunity to complete that quiz and submit your answers and responses. Okay. I'm going to stop the share for a second. And a couple of the things that I wanted to do to wrap up our review was just visit, try that one more time, just revisit the course syllabus. I wanted to point out a few specific details that may help you with the quiz. Remember that the best way to get in touch with me this semester is to use my Kishwaukee College email, which is highlighted right here for you, jfowler1@kish.edu. Remember that also for the makeup policies, I accept no late papers unless you notify me in advance and I approve a late assignment, in which case I'll give you about 1 week of makeup time. It's your responsibility to attend class. In an online class like this, you should always consult your instructor as to whether or not your classes will be delivered synchronously or, as in the case for this course, asynchronously. Late work, again, will be evaluated on a declining scale, but if you can anticipate an absence, I will do away with that penalty. So you can get the most out of your points if you know you're just going to be absent in advance. Okay. Those are the specifics that I am going to point out for today. There are probably more things that you may want to review in this syllabus as you go through your first quiz, but remember you have a 2-hour window to complete that session. So take as much time as you need. I think that should be more than ample time to answer your 8 quiz questions for this first week. Alrighty, I'm going to stop share one more time. And I'm going to stop the video for just a few moments so that it has a bit of time to run smoothly and decrease any potential lag. So hold on, you'll just see my name for a few moments. So today, we have a few other things that I want to cover, specifically dealing with our first chapter, Now That You're Here. In Now That You're Here, the instructors that write each chapter, that have written each chapter, Sherry Nist Olegic and Jody Patrick Pulshu, try to explain what the best elements related to this new phenomenon called college really is all about. And I'm going to take just a few minutes of your time to describe what it is I'd like you to do with this material. Okay. So for sharing screen, we'll go ahead and look at the announcements for today. We've already, as you can see, discussed the syllabus. We've mentioned again the week 1 discussion, and now we're on to quiz number 1. So in this text, again, college success strategies. Chapter 1 begins with a little quiz, a self-assessment. You're going to write a self-assessment essay later, but this might not be a bad thing to try yourself in preparation for that assignment. So here you can see that they've got this self-assessment quiz. And I really don't like quizzes like this, to be honest, because they break the categories into strongly agree or strongly disagree. I don't know about you, but there are very few things in life that I either really strongly agree with or really strongly disagree with. Most of the time, I'm kind of in the middle. So if you're anything like me, I find difficulty gaining anything valuable or insightful from little quizzes like that. They don't tell me anything about myself or my preferences I probably didn't already know. It may be different for you, though. So that's why I suggest that you complete that on the bottom of page 1, top of page 2. So one of the first things that they want to explain in detail is how college differs from your high school experience. Again, everyone's high school experience is a little bit different. So some of the things that they're proposing might be different, may already be somewhat familiar, but we'll take a look at some of the highlights. They start by explaining that college may require more independent learning. And this is true, I feel. You may not have as many study guides. You may not have as great of access to the types of study materials and tutoring sessions that you did in a high school setting. But then again, some of us didn't have any of those things. So the fact that they're chalking that up as something different is, again, a situation where your particular mileage may vary on that point. Their main point, though, is that you, one, don't have as many opportunities to build a grade up in a college class as you may have in previous high school classes. And number two, your instructors will probably do a lot of what I'm doing right here, whether it's via Zoom or face-to-face. They'll be delivering lecture points as opposed to actually having you complete specific smaller assignments that build a multi-layered approach to a larger theme or idea. We just don't have the time or the inclination to do that as often in college as we do in high schools. College courses do also move at a slightly faster pace. If you think about it, everything that you would do in a traditional American school year, late August to late May or early June, is sort of cut in half because we use the semester system. Some colleges actually use a trimester system or a 11-week system. But the point is that if you're going to put an entire course together in a space of about 3 months or 16 weeks, I guess 3 months, 4 weeks would be 12 weeks. So it's a little bit more than 3 full months. A 16-week or traditional semester is still a lot quicker than a course that you might experience at the high school level. College courses require you to think critically. This is a bone of contention for Mr. Fowler. I think a lot of your high school classes potentially challenge you to think critically as well. But let me read a little bit of the text here because I want to make sure that the authors are expressing themselves fairly. They explain that in high school classes, perhaps you're required to memorize lots of facts for exams, and you may have been discouraged from questioning your high school textbooks or your teachers. But as you proceed through college, you'll find yourself in classes where the professor wants you to do more than just memorize. You may have to critique an essay on gun control, or read and respond to a historian's view on the Vietnamese conflict, or even compare and contrast conflicting scientific theories. All these tasks require you to think critically because you need to go beyond memorization to applying or synthesizing in the information. So again, yes, college courses do task you with these meatier pieces of insight and knowledge. But I'm not sure some of our high school courses don't do that currently already. I don't know. I'll leave that up to you to think about. College classes have few safety nets. We've already talked about this. There are fewer assignments on average for a college class. There are fewer opportunities to build your grade up. This is due to the nature of college and that pacing issue we were talking about earlier. College requires you to study longer and more effectively. I don't know about this one. There's an old adage that colleges used to profess, which is that for every hour you're in class, you should study that many hours outside of class. So for example, we meet twice a week for about an hour in this particular course. That means you should study 2 hours to memorize or pour over this content. I don't really know that you would need to study 2 full hours. That depends on the individual student, their time schedule, their ability to retain material, and their interest in what they're studying. I do recommend, on the other hand, when you have multiple subjects to study, study the ones that are the most difficult for you first. And if there's a course that, gasp, you actually enjoy, save that one to study for last, because chances are you're probably already engaged and you'll be interested no matter what time or what energy level you may have when you approach that particular text. College provides fewer chances for evaluation. This is the same thing they already said. Yes, there are fewer grades in a given college course, fewer safety nets to build up your score. That's because the assignments tend to be a little bit broader in scope, okay? College gives you freedom and more responsibility, absolutely. If nothing else, college lets you find out whether or not you're suited for academic studies. I know this is sort of a big misnomer that I need to be careful with, but the plain and simple truth is that everybody I have come into contact with experiences a college, how should I say this? They experience a college environment, whether it's actually in college or not. You go through a period in your life that is basically learning to be an adult and function independently. A lot of times that happens in American colleges. Sometimes though it happens in the workplace. And sometimes you find out that, you know, as interesting as college is, as necessary as college is, it's not really for everybody. Hold on, don't panic in regard to what I'm saying. It's not for everybody in the traditional time frame. And what I mean by that is just this. College and education as a process does not have a specific ending or beginning time. If you feel like it should for some reason, you may be frustrating yourself because that's just not the case. You may not be ready for college until you find a desire to pursue an education. Now, some of you have that idea innately planned out, or you have experienced a good program at your high school, and this is the next natural step for you. Especially right now in COVID, that may be driving some of you to college because jobs are scarce and the world is very different right now. And sometimes a safety net of something that's familiar is a good reason to pursue an education. So for all of those reasons, you may want to pursue education. However, you also may find that college isn't for you right now. I would say then colleges like Kishwaukee and other community colleges, Rock Valley, Sauk, they fulfill a really important need for our society, which is that they offer that opportunity to experience college and to use those credits to transfer to larger universities or institutions, even private colleges, because you have multiple options when you choose to pursue a college career. College requires you to be proactive. Absolutely it does. And the reason that I say that is because if you allow yourself to procrastinate, you don't have the safety net of Mr. Fowler checking on you, or even your parents making sure that you do your homework or your assignments. Most of what you have to do is on you. I always like to pause at this point in my lecture and tell a story about my brother. My parents took him to Rock Valley when he was a graduating senior. They signed him up for classes, and they made sure that if he didn't have a ride with his friends, that they got him to the start of each college day. And he wouldn't go to class. There was just something in his demeanor, in his experience, that craved something different. He wasn't ready for college at that point. He would go to the student union and hang out there and play ping pong and joke around, stuff like that. And of course, when the end of the semester rolled around, he didn't do very well. He passed a couple of his classes, but a lot of them he didn't. And the reason he didn't is because he didn't attend the courses and he didn't complete the assignments or even show up to take the tests. Years later, he found himself the father of 3 girls, working third shift, then leaving third shift to drive to DeKalb to take classes at NIU. Why did he have to do it that way? He wasn't ready to take college courses during the traditional time frame. But when he was ready, he was successful. So that's a big key. He wasn't proactive in his initial pursuit for college, but he eventually found the motivation that he needed to get him interested in the process. They also pause and talk about a couple of different resources that are available for students on campus, so you don't feel completely abandoned. Obviously, resources like the library, the Learning Center, and tutorial services are available on most major campuses, including right here at Kish. Health services could also be critical, especially for students who may suffer from anxiety or other attention-related issues. The Counseling Center is important, and I want to read just a bit here from the text. And as it says, more and more students are enlisting the help of a trained professional from their campus counseling center. If you find that you have problems that are getting in the way of your academic success, you should seek out help through these institutions. Sometimes talking with a friend works, but if it doesn't, you can find out more about the services offered at the Counseling Center. And of course, if you want more information about that, the Kishwaukee website itself has several different links that you can follow to find out more information about each and every one of these services. Even in a pandemic, when we're mostly online, there are people and institutions that you can reach out to help make sure that you have a successful go of things here at Kishwaukee College. Okay, what special situations can you expect to encounter sooner or later? And that starts on page 7. Now, again, I have some issues with a few of these ideas. And it's not because my experience was so different from your own. It's just that, again, I question whether or not every student is going to have or encounter every one of these scenarios. The first thing they talk about are instructors who take roll. I'll be honest with you, almost every instructor that I know at a community college like this one takes roll. In fact, many of them incorporate it into their scores, into their grades. We don't have to take roll because we're asynchronous and we meet online. But I do kind of create an initiative for engagement by making sure that you complete the weekly discussion forum questions and try the weekly quizzes. An early morning class. Let's be honest. If you know you're not a morning person, I would stay away from morning classes. What is early morning? It varies for each of us. A lot of times a traditional school day is about 7:45. By the way, you ever wonder why that is? Why do we go to school at 7:45 and leave just before 3 o'clock? Well, that's all due to factory work. Because a lot of early factory owners were privy to the beginnings of formal American education and the ideas that built or led to their structuring. So a work day in a factory is roughly from 8 to 5, okay? So they designed it a little bit earlier than 8 o'clock and a little bit sooner than 5 o'clock as a beginning and end time for students, because most of what school does as a framework is set up students to be good factory workers. Now, that's a problem today because we find more and more American manufacturing jobs going overseas. So we've had to shift our focus in American education, even though we haven't really made a shift in our economy to make sure that we're training the workers of tomorrow or the professionals of tomorrow. Food for thought. So yeah, on occasion there will be an early morning class. About 8 a.m. is the earliest I've ever heard of a class starting. That only is hosted at 8 a.m. or is exclusively hosted at 8 a.m. But most of the time, if you're thinking about your first year college experience, most of the courses that you're going to take, like this one or English 103 or English 101 and another course, something like that, Math 101, Math 98, those classes are necessary for a wide variety of students. So if you're not a morning person or you just think you're not going to be successful early, don't take morning classes. Go back and get your schedule shifted around and changed so that you're going to be attending class when you're at your best. That's one of the upsides to distance education, because you create the parameters that allow you to be the most successful. A course or professor you don't particularly like, yeah, you're gonna run into this one. And they give you a couple of really good examples in this text. So again, you're gonna have to pardon me while I read from the text. There are a couple of different routes you can go. And the first one's called Route A. You can think of every excuse imaginable not to do the work or go to class. You can blame your attitude on the professor or the boring material that you're expected to learn. Okay, what's the consequence of that? You could receive a poor grade, develop a bad feeling about yourself, or have to work doubly hard in another course to bring up your overall grade average. Option B is a little bit more likely to make you successful. And that's the whole name of the game. That's why it's called college and career success strategies, right? So in Route B, you should basically kind of grow up overnight, or as they phrase it, acknowledge you really don't care much for the course or the professor, but realize it's also only one course. And you could probably make it through. Study with someone who does seem to like the course, if possible. And try to motivate yourself with small rewards if studying with someone else is not realistic. Tell yourself that this is a temporary stop and that the course will be over before you know it. Again, 16 short weeks, 2 sessions per week, that's about 32 classes. Count them off in your head like that. Session 1, session 2, on and on, till you're done. There's only that much more to go. After this week, you only have to attend 30 more classes. Think about that. The consequences of choosing Route B would be that perhaps you might not earn an A, but you can emerge with your ego and your grade point average intact, which is a little bit more important in the long term. Cramming for tests. It's very possible and doable at the high school level. And I'll be honest with you, there are courses and tests that are, cram worthy, if you want to think of it in that term. You can cram for some tests in college, but relying on that method consistently will, one, exhaust you, and two, really not pay off as a good long-term strategy. So one of the things that this class purports to do is inculcate or build into your experience strategies that will be more successful for the majority of you for a longer period of time. So as it says here, most college students experience motivation problems of some type or other. It usually doesn't last that long, but some students decline in motivations long enough and severe enough to interfere with their work. If you're having motivation problems, try setting some specific, reachable goals. You could say, all right, I don't really like to read, for example. It's a big one for students. If you can't read for a long time, take a chapter like this one from our text and time yourself. See how long you can read before you become distracted. If it's 15 minutes or 30 minutes, that's fine. Set yourself a time for 15 or 30 minutes to read a text. And don't read more than that. Make sure that you're giving yourself enough of a break. You may be coping with a personal problem or illness. Obviously, nobody plans on getting sick. This is particularly important for us this semester. But at some point, you will likely experience either a personal problem or some type of illness. First, try to plan your schedule for the term and build in some flexibility. If everything goes according to plan, the worst thing that happens is you'll have some extra time to work, study, or play. Second, use services available on the campus if applicable. And then develop a set of reliable peers who can be there to support you in times of personal strife or dilemma. Some of you may also just experience something as pure as frustration. When and if you experience frustration with a class, try to inculcate or build in things that you like to do in your daily routine. Take a break. Go play basketball. Go for a walk. Spend time with your pets or your family. These kinds of things can help you de-stress, and maybe even just explaining the frustration can help you work that process out of your system. You also may find that you are juggling too many responsibilities at the same time. Well, that's a skill that even I sometimes find myself struggling with. And one of the best things that you can do, I know it's tough, I personally don't like to do this, but you have to learn sometimes to say no. To say, I can't go party with you this weekend. Or Mom, Dad, I'm living at home going to Kish. I'd like to do something with the family, but I have a big test I have to study for. I can't go to my cousin's volleyball game. I really can't help you with yard work this weekend. Next weekend's a whole other story. I'm all for it. Maybe you could help juggle your schedule by understanding the needs of my schedule. And to that end, I also make a quick suggestion. Write out your school schedule, or if you have a printed copy, print one and post it someplace visibly in your home or in your living quarters so that people know what your schedule is and let them know when you don't want to be interrupted. because of that schedule. I know that's very demanding, but a lot of times parents forget how difficult college was for them, or they may not have done that well in college. We want you to succeed, and sometimes that means being a little bit demanding with your time. In fact, I've often told my students in the past, think about college as a full-time career, because for the next 2 or 4 years, that's really what it's going to feel like. When you do have problems organizing your course materials, even when you're an organized student, this may be an occasional issue. So we suggest that you keep your, as it says here, variety of learning materials in the same course requires you to keep up with a lot of material. You may have to find new and creative ways to organize to keep it all straight. The more likely scenario here for college is that you will be responsible for information from not only one or more texts and lectures, but you may use online course management systems like Desire to Learn. You may even find CD-ROM supplements, online materials, ebooks, workbooks, and even computerized homework assignments. In this class alone, you have a lecture to listen to or watch. You've got a couple of links to go visit, an article from a blog to read, and discussion forum questions, and a quiz to take. That's like 5 different things to balance in just one course. Many students take about 3 courses per semester, so building on that, you could have as many as 15 different tasks to do in the course of a week. That's going to require some planning and management on your part. But luckily, one of your classes is built around that very concept. So as we continue into next week, we're going to have our first sort of experience managing time and managing the ways in which we learn. So that will be an exciting first set of experiments for us to try out next week. All right, that's it for me. Thanks so much for your time and your attention. Don't forget to check the links below this link. You've got a link about 10 myths about your first year in college, and another little video about students being real about what is challenging, different, and interesting about the first year of college. So I think you'll get a bang out of that one. Until next time, this is Mr. Fowler. Take care, everyone.